Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive. Today we'll be jumping way back in time to explore ancient Indian education.
Ooh, very cool.
Yeah, I'm excited about this one. We've got some incredible sources to work with. And from what I've seen so far, get ready to be surprised. We're talking about a system that was light years ahead of its time.
You know what's really interesting to me?
What's that?
It's that when most people think about ancient education, like the image that pops into their head, it's all like rigid memorization, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Scribes just hunched over scrolls, memorizing endless texts. Yeah.
Exactly. But that wasn't really the vibe in ancient India. Like, they were super focused on developing the whole person, morally, physically, even spiritually.
Well, hold on. Physically, I thought we were talking about like hitting the books.
Oh, they definitely hit the books, don't get me wrong. But they also made physical education a core part of the curriculum.
So, like, what? Gym class in ancient India?
Think bigger. We're talking archery, martial arts, all sorts of games and exercises, and, even yoga.
Wow, so they understood that a healthy body kind of goes hand in hand with a healthy mind.
All
That's awesome. But okay, let's get back to the academics. What about the actual subjects? What were they studying?
right. Prepare to be surprised again because it wasn't just about the Vedas and Upanishads.
Oh, okay, so there was more. I mean, those are obviously important
Of
texts.
course, that's. But they also had all this other stuff going on, like in-depth studies of medicine, grammar, logic, architecture, even politics.
Oh, wait, really? I had no
Uh-huh.
idea. It sounds like they were going for a truly well-rounded education, like a blend of the philosophical and the practical.
Exactly. And don't forget economics. That was a big one, too.
Wow. I'm starting to see why ancient India was considered, like a global hub for learning back then.
Hmm.
Okay, but you mentioned medicine. Did they have any, like, famous figures in these fields?
Oh, tons. I bet you've heard of Aryabhatta,
Huh.
the mathematician and astronomer.
Oh, yeah, the one whose work was, like, way ahead of its time.
That's him. And then there's Panini.
Panini,
Yeah.
remind me.
He's considered the father of linguistics, basically wrote the book on grammar, super detailed and influential stuff.
Oh, right. And you also mentioned some pioneers in medicine.
Right. Charaka and Sushruta, their treatises are still studied today.
It's amazing how much their work has impacted us, even all these centuries later. Okay, so we've got all these amazing thinkers in these fields of study, but where did all this learning actually happen? Like, did they have, like, big libraries and lecture halls like we picture today?
Well, yeah, they definitely had those, especially at their famous universities, which we'll get to later.
Right, the universities, yeah.
But first, I think we need to talk about, like, the foundation of ancient Indian education, the Gurukul system.
The Gurukul system. Okay, I've heard of that, but I'm not sure I fully understand it.
Picture this, all right. Serene forest ashrams where students lived with their teachers. They didn't just learn from books, they learned from daily life.
Wait, so they actually lived with their teachers. That's pretty intense. Like, what was that experience like?
It was all about this super close bond between the guru and the student. The guru was like the guide, the mentor. It wasn't just about lectures and tests, it was about character building, and fostering a real passion for learning.
It sounds almost spiritual, like a journey of self-discovery.
Exactly. And, it wasn't just a system for men either. Women were very much a part of it.
Oh, really? That's great to hear. I have to admit, I kind of assumed it was, a boys' club back then.
Not at all. There are actually accounts of some super remarkable female scholars from that time. People like Maitreyi, Gargi, and Lopamudra. They were participating in all these philosophical debates and contributed a ton to various fields of knowledge.
That's so cool. So we've got these intimate forest ashrams, but you also mentioned universities.
Yes, we can't forget about them.
Weren't those the ones that were attracting students from, like, all over the world?
Exactly. We need to talk about Taxila and Nalanda. Think of them as the Harvard and Oxford of their era.
Oh, wow. That's a good comparison. I mean, I've heard of Taxila and Nalanda, but what exactly made them so special? What set them apart from other centers of learning?
Well, for starters, Taxila had this really practical approach to education.
Okay, so like hands-on learning.
Yeah, something like that. They had courses on everything: medicine, law, military science, and they even had these 18 silpas.
18 silpas. What are those?
Basically, think of it as a comprehensive range of arts, crafts, and technical skills. They were masters at a lot of things.
Wow. So you could literally go to Taxila and become a doctor, a lawyer, or even like a master artisan.
Yeah.
It sounds like they really valued practical skills just as much as the intellectual stuff. What about Nalanda? What was the vibe there?
Nalanda was a bit more of a intellectual hub, a place where ideas were constantly being debated and exchanged.
I can only imagine. So what was it like to actually be there?
Well, picture this. Every single day, there would be like 100 discourses happening.
100. Whoa, that's a lot of talking.
I know, right? And then there are, these lively debates, a massive library overflowing with all these scrolls, and they had all these top scholars from different fields. It must have been an amazing place to be.
Man, 100 discourses a day. That's mind-blowing. Did they, like, have any super famous alumni? People who went on to do great things?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Taxila had some pretty impressive alumni.
Like who?
Well, there was Panini, the grammarian we talked about before.
Oh, right, Panini.
And also Chanakya. Have you heard of him?
Chanakya.
Yeah.
Rings a bell, but I can't place it.
He's pretty important. He was a brilliant strategist who wrote this book called Arthashastra. It's basically this classic treatise on politics and economics.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah. That's a pretty big deal. It sounds like these universities played a huge role in shaping the intellectual landscape of ancient India. But okay, I gotta ask, how are these places funded? Were they only for, like, the super rich?
That is actually one of the most interesting things about this whole system. It wasn't about money. Like, they weren't businesses. These universities were all about community support.
Wait, so, like, no tuition fees or anything. How did they make it work?
Education, knowledge, it was seen as this, like, sacred thing, something to be shared freely, not bought and sold.
That's a really beautiful idea.
So yeah, it was all about the community stepping up. Merchants, wealthy families, sometimes even entire villages would contribute to make sure these places thrived.
So they were donating, like, land and resources.
Exactly. Everything these places needed. Buildings, books, food, it all came from people who believed in the power of education.
That's pretty incredible when you think about it. It really shows how highly they valued education. It wasn't just seen as a personal thing, It was like a shared responsibility.
Exactly. They even had these whole settlements called agraharas. Basically, they were communities specifically set up to support scholars.
Wow, whole community. So education was literally woven into the fabric of their society.
It was a cornerstone of their culture.
I'm seeing a real theme here. You've got these gurukuls focused on personal growth, these bustling international universities, and this whole society that values learning and makes it accessible to everyone. It really does sound like they had something special going on.
It was a golden age for sure. And, the influence of this ancient system, it didn't just disappear. You can still see traces of it today in indigenous schools, in temples, in a lot of later institutions that carried on the tradition.
It's amazing how those traditions managed to survive and influence education for centuries. Okay, but let's bring this back to the present for a second. Is there anything we can learn from all of this? Like, are there any takeaways that we could maybe apply to our own approach to education?
That's what I love about these deep dives. They always make you think. I mean, their holistic approach is super inspiring, right? They understood that education wasn't just about cramming facts. It was about building character, developing practical skills, and preparing people to contribute to society.
Yeah, it was like they were thinking long term, not just prepping you for a job, but for a fulfilling life.
Exactly. And we can't forget about their emphasis on community involvement, the idea that everyone has a role to play in supporting education. Maybe that's something we need to bring back.
It's a powerful thought. Education as a shared endeavor, not just the responsibility of schools and teachers, but of the whole community.
Right. Everyone working together to nurture the next generation of thinkers and doers.
This has been eye-opening. We've gone from quiet forest ashrams to these global universities, and it's clear that ancient India had this really unique approach to education.
A system that was built on values that we seem to have, maybe kind of forgotten about in our modern world.
It really makes you wonder if we're missing out on something, Maybe by focusing so much on, like, standardized tests and all that, like, what if we shifted our focus to actually developing, well-rounded human beings?
That's a good question, isn't it? Like, maybe there are some things, some of those ancient ideas that we could, bring back and integrate into our modern system.
Yeah, totally. Instead of just seeing education as, like, a means to an end, like just to get a job, what if we could, like, reignite that sense of wonder, that excitement about learning for the sake of learning, like they seemed to have back then?
Yeah, that's the key, isn't it? Fostering that love for knowledge, that curiosity that makes you want to keep learning and growing throughout your whole life. I mean, it does make you wonder, right? Like, maybe somewhere along the way we lost sight of that a little bit.
It does. Like, maybe in our quest for efficiency and measurable outcomes, we kind of forgot about, the bigger picture.
It's definitely something to think about. But yeah, looking back at these ancient systems, it reminds us that there's so much power in that holistic approach, that idea of, personal growth, community involvement, and developing the whole person. Really valuable lessons there.
Totally.
Yeah.
And hey, huge thanks to all of you listening, especially the one who sent in this amazing source material. We couldn't have done this deep dive without you.
Absolutely.
So keep those requests coming because we're always excited to dive into a new topic and learn something new. Thanks again for listening.